I was on 12 medications. I was diagnosed with advanced osteoporosis, advanced rheumatoid arthritis, advanced fibromyalgia. Every time I would go to the doctor, they would give me more medicine. And I was just really feeling awful. And I was like, you know what? They don't know my story. They don't know who I am. So under doctor supervision, I slowly started to wean myself off of 9 out of 12 medications. I get all my blood work, no osteoporosis or no rheumatoid factors found, no gout found. So please tell me how.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Awake with Lady. I am your host, Lady, and today I am joined by Dena Paduano, an intuitive life coach with 18 years of experience in psychometry and energy work. Dena helps others align with their true potential. Dena, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm very excited to have you on today and looking forward to our conversation. I know that it's going to be a good one. There's a lot to unpack here. But before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about you before you have all your experiences?
Yes. So I grew up in California, in Orange County, Newport Beach, California. I had 4 siblings, and I don't know if those of you who know Orange County, it's not the most spiritual place, right? It's called the bubble behind the orange curtain because reality it's like deep in the matrix. I moved to LA when I was 17 out of high school. I pursued acting for 18 years. Clearly, I didn't make it. I don't know why, but I didn't. When I got a really bad back and bad neck, I was forced to stop waiting on tables, which then forced me to redirect where I was going because I needed another way to make money. And then my godmother, who's a world renowned psychic at the time, said to me, "It's time to use your gift." And I said, "No, no, no, I don't want to, blah, blah, blah." So the very first person she sent me was Goldie Hawn. And then Goldie sent me her daughter, and then her daughter. So I got really lucky in the beginning, but I was very afraid of what that meant for me, what direction that meant for me, giving up everything I always thought I wanted, and it took injury to literally stop me in my tracks to make me redirect because the whole direction in which I thought I was supposed to be going, literally, I had to pivot. And I met somebody in 1998 that was from Italy. All of a sudden, he had Googled me 20 years later and found me on Google. "Hi, I'm Marco from Rome. Do you remember me?" Then we wound up getting married. I wound up moving to Italy. Unfortunately, we're separated now, but I'm in Italy. Being in Italy was like moving back to the 1970s, right? And so imagine my little Orange County bougie booty going like, "You don't have a dryer or a dishwasher? Like, ew, oh my God, what?" And it really humbled me, but it also allowed me to get perspective of my old life from the outside looking in. I never knew that life wasn't about having more stuff. They never taught us that where I grew up in capitalism, consumerism, everything. It was never like it was about you were only as good as big as your house was or as better as your car was or you were only as good as the lowest number on the scale. And then I come to a country where Christmas has nothing to do with gifts and people literally are baffled by me and it made me take a really close look at what was going on, especially because I have back issues. I would get the kids out on the, outside in my complex, and I would pay them $10 to help me vacuum and stuff. And when they came in my apartment, they were confused why I had so many clothes and so much stuff. And they weren't impressed. They were confused. They were like, "Yeah, but I don't get it. Why does one person have so?" And then that's what made me start looking into, I was like, wait, this feels so off because kids always love me and these kids love me, don't get me wrong, but they had never questioned me like that. And I think it took it for me to receive it from a child to not get defensive and have my ego in it because they had no stake in that game, right? And then TikTok during COVID, I find out that I am neurodivergent, autistic, and ADHD at 52. And then I had a healing session with this woman that a client had bought me. And that woman was when I had my awakening. She knew I was Christian and she's like, I don't want to disrespect your belief system or anything, but you seem very close to that. And I'm not sure how much I'm supposed to expose you to. And she was explaining to me that spirituality is looking for God inside yourself. Religion is looking for God outside of yourself. Right. And so that's when it started to click. I was like, wait, what? And then I started to do recon in my head, right? Of like, okay, wait a minute. So when in my life was I ever told to go in and it was about how I felt and how I showed up in the world and where I came in? And then all of a sudden you start having these mini awakenings, right? And then you can't talk to many people about it because a lot of people are like, you sound delulu, right? And you're like, that's okay. But think, it took me being I moved to a town during my separation, I moved from Rome to a town that's only got 44,000 people during COVID. And I've been here 4.5 years. So when I say I was isolated, it took me being isolated in the mountains of Italy to finally be less distracted to where I could actually go in. Then I quit drinking in 2021, which then that even uncovered so much more. I'm somebody who deals with chronic pain. I've had 34 surgeries and I had 5 autoimmunes and chronic pain. Well, and then in this research and in the awakening process, I'm now understanding that chronic pain is stored trauma. I didn't know that before, right? Going to specialists 2 times a week for the last 15 years, being in debt, the 34 surgeries, the machine in my back, it all, right? So then I started to make a shift. I started to show up for myself in different ways. I started to reparent myself. I started to go, oh, well, because I'm neurodivergent and because I'm autistic, I used to be called controlling, cold, like all of these things, which I wasn't. It turns out that my nervous system was just dysregulated and I was trying to control my environment. Right. And so when they say nothing is what it seems, this is what I started learning. That's what they're talking about. Nothing is what it seems because I wasn't really controlling or a bitch. I was just neurodivergent and didn't know it. And so now we're coming to this place in the world where more people are having collective consciousness awakenings, right? Together, where I like working with young people. I don't mind working with all age, but I really like getting my hands on people that are like 17 to 40 or 45. But you want to help them build a solid foundation so that when they're going out there, they don't have to do what I did, is dismantle everything and then rebuild. Because I find myself at 55 having to rebuild everything, like everything I was ever taught, I was ever told to do. Literally, I was taught that growing up, not just by my parents, by the environment I grew up in, that if you were skinny, you wouldn't have the problems that you have now. And I was like, okay, wait. So I finally lost. I was 230 pounds. Now today I'm 135, like 90 pounds. And I still got problems. Like, what the heck happened to that whole system? Right. So then you're like, wait. And then once you start being a seeker of information about yourself, for yourself, with yourself, and you know that you're a safe space. So then last year, I watched this podcast and there were these doctors, Casey Means and her brother Cal, talking about that you're probably on medications that you don't even need. And I was on 12 medications at the time. And I heard her. And I was like, you know what? Under doctor supervision, I slowly started to wean myself off of 9 out of 12 medications. Now, I was diagnosed with advanced osteoporosis, advanced rheumatoid arthritis, advanced fibromyalgia, advanced gout, and I have spondylitis. I could go on, but I won't. So I stopped taking thyroid medicine. I stopped taking my antidepressants. I stopped taking lots of stuff. It's different for everyone, but I was so sick that I felt like I kept getting sicker. Every time I would go to the doctor, they would give me more medicine And then I was like, okay, great. So I'll stop taking the medicine that I'm already taking. No, you're going to triple that now. You're going to take it 3 times a day. And then I was just really feeling awful. Like I just felt so bad. And I was like, you know what? They don't know my story. They don't know who I am. The doctor gaslights me with my friend. He goes, you don't understand. Your osteoporosis is so bad that if you fall, you're going to break every bone in your body, blah, blah. And I go, and I looked at my friend and I go, this is gaslighting at its finest. I am not gaslighting you. I go, oh, you are. And I said, and let me tell you, and I looked at all the students around. I said, if you're going to ever be a doctor, do not talk to your patients like this. I was like, listen, I get what you're saying, but do you see my history? He wouldn't even look at my history of stuff. I am a professore. Oh, I'm so happy for you. Like, good for you. And I said, but you're saying your colleague is wrong. The colleague here is wrong. Yes, they're all wrong. Oh, okay, great. That was when I decided, and that was in 2022. I'm done. So I had kept taking the medicine until last year. I stopped the medicine slowly. I got a sauna infrared bag, which helped with the withdrawals of the medicine because it helped filter out the kidneys and the liver with everything, right? And I'm using that daily. I started Joe Dispenza meditation, the morning meditation. You can find them on YouTube. They're amazing. And then the sauna infrared bag. And then I do the red and the blue light on my face. So every morning it's non-negotiable. I do the infrared bag for 30 minutes, the meditation, and the red and blue light on my face. So in 30 minutes, I'm golden for the day, right? Okay. So please tell me how. I get all my blood work done a couple weeks ago, and I get a mock, which talks about your bone density. No osteoporosis or osteopenia found. No rheumatoid factors found. No gout found. So please tell me, okay? So the difference is, I'm not telling people to get off their medications, but I'm saying do your research. Then the infrared sauna bag makes you sweat so much every day. The one day I had missed it, I remember getting the chills and being super nauseous because I was getting off of antidepressants I was on for 20 years. Then when I was using it, I had been realizing it was helping to filter out all of that stuff from my body. And then the Joe Dispenza meditation every day where you visualize how you want your future. And I'm really big into visualization, manifestation. You are what you constantly think about. And so please tell me how that even my family doctor and my ex-husband will call me, even it's been a couple weeks. He's like, no, but the paper said that you were at high risk for fracturing your bones. I don't understand it because he can't conceptualize the spirituality and the positive thinking and all of those things, right? Like he needs proof. And I'm like, so me testing and all of that and you watching isn't proof enough. There's some people who just don't want to do the work. And then there's other people. What I try to explain to people is that when you become as in pain and as desperate as I was, there isn't anything you won't do to get out of that pain. There isn't any, like I have a 19-inch scar on my back where I was supposed to go in for this and they split me down and they had to put a cage in my back and they had to do like all these things. I have a machine in my back where I have a remote control where it vibrates. And like literally, I gave my life away to a system and I gave them all of my power. And what I'm learning as I'm finding myself is that I was a victim to a system that it's about the bottom dollar and they got me addicted on their system. Right. And so that's just my story. I came from a very tumultuous childhood. It was not pretty. Father in and out of prison, physical abuse, sexual abuse, beatings every day of my life. I get stored trauma. I understand it now. But I'm the only one in my family that has this kind of issue and this kind of chronic pain, but it's because I'm more empathic, right? And we all
Mhm.
chose our trauma response in a different way. Unfortunately, I don't talk to my siblings because I had to put up boundaries and they didn't like the boundaries I had to put up. I waited 27 years and eventually it happened. And so I had a falling out with my brothers during the elections. And so it's like this. I chose everyone else over me thinking I was doing the right thing most of my life because I was gaslit into you're selfish. What is this self-care? Oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And then when really everyone was doing what was best for them except me. I was doing what was best for everybody else, and I wasn't doing what was best for me because I was allowing everyone to gaslight me into thinking that what I was doing was selfish and wrong. But it took me moving 6,000 miles away and going through a pandemic to get perspective.
And you know what? That reminds me of a meditation that we did this morning. I am a spiritualist. This morning, I was at the spiritualist church and I stand during the healing meditation. I'm one of the healers there. So this morning, I was feeling kind of off for, other things happening. And what you just said about self care reminded me of this particular healing that I did on myself. So during the meditation, the person that was guiding the meditation, she said, imagine your cup being overflown first. And then in my mind's eye, I saw myself like my vessel was a glass of wine that was stacked onto four other glasses of wine. And then those glasses of wine were,
Like coming down.
yes, and exactly. And my cup, I saw being overflown with like liquid healing light, and then it was overflowing and pouring into the other cups. And that you just said, the situation with your family reminded me of that. Like, yes, it's hard sometimes or challenging to say, I'm gonna take care of myself first. But what we fail to realize most of the time is that by taking care of yourself or ourselves, we have more energy to take care of others.
And also
Mhm.
you're setting the standard on how others
Mhm.
treat you. By not having boundaries, I was disrespecting myself. I also had to learn, because I used to be very guilty of this. I was an automatic fixer. I would automatically give advice to people who didn't ask for it because I wanted to get myself out of discomfort right away. And I read this quote a couple weeks ago that said, giving unsolicited advice is actually criticism. And I was like, wait, run that by me again? And then I was like, but I was always used to, from growing up in Orange County, how many people, I kid you not, this used to happen to me, would come up to me and go, you have such a beautiful face. Have you ever thought about losing 10 pounds? Oh my God, living in Los Angeles, it's never occurred to me to go on a diet. Like, what
Never.
the fudge?
Mhm.
Right? And so literally the comments that people felt so freely to say,
Mhm.
I would take those comments and confirm my confirmation bias of the gaslighting I was doing to myself in my own head. You're too fat. See, everyone can see
Mhm.
it. You're not enough. So the body dysmorphia runs deep, right? It's layer after layer just when you think you're out and you're like, okay, I've learned to put boundaries up with narcissistic style people. And then you're like realizing, oh, but that's not all the kinds of bad people. There's other kinds of things and other kinds of whatever. And then you start to realize that it's nobody's fault and nobody's at fault. It's just that they haven't changed. I have.
Mhm.
And I'm different. They signed up with the old me who was servicing them, always showing up for them, and they never had to do anything in return. And now it's like, oh yeah, well, I didn't sign up for that, so I'm not down for this friendship. And it hurts my sweet little heart, but now I'm seeing it and I'm losing people in record numbers when before I was
Mhm.
so afraid because I would confuse history with loyalty. Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
I've known them 30 years and no, there's so much that's why they should be showing up better than they are. And they're
Mhm.
not. So what are you doing? And so instead of gaslighting myself, I allow myself to feel it, heal it, and release it. Easier said than done, I know.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
It's been a eye-opening experience that I didn't know that getting to know me and getting to understand who I am, that I could be so in love with myself and so happy that I actually found myself and who I am. And you can't buy this kind of happiness. It doesn't come in a bottle, right? And so many people will say to me online, people who've known me or clients and stuff, and they're like, you look so good. You seem so happy. Is it because of the weight loss? And I'm like, no, it's because I figured out how my brain works and I figured out who I am. A lot of the narratives I added that I didn't realize I was neurodivergent, those don't exist anymore because I'm neurodivergent, right? And so
Mhm.
a lot of the things I've been dismantling and seeing It's literally all from, this needs to be a safe place to live. But no one ever taught us how to talk to ourselves in a nice way, how to be kind to ourselves. No one ever said, well, how do you talk to yourself up here? Is this a safe place to live? So when they say doing the work or the shadow work, this is not for the weak. You have to really be willing to face some dark nights of the soul. But you also can know that, I didn't know that when you're happy, also can exist sadness, fear, and anxiety. They can all exist at the same time, right? So my mom, though, growing up, if you would, we had money problems. No one can move. We can't do anything till we figure out the money. Da, 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 da. And it was like being neurodivergent. I would mask, but I would mimic the things I saw. A lot of my paralysis was me mimicking. I didn't know that when is hitting the fan, you're still allowed to clean your house, run errands, see a friend, go to lunch. I just remember in capitalism also is like, it's Wednesday at 8 o'clock in the morning and you're not dressed and ready. What are you doing today? And it's just this constant barrage of, what are you doing? I had to read books, how to do nothing, how to escape capitalism. You're not lazy, because of the system that has literally conditioned us. And then I was on the phone the other day with my really good friend, and her son was on the phone, and her son's too, and we were FaceTiming. I almost asked this beautiful little child, what do you want to be when you grow up? And in my brain, I go, oh, shoot, that's when it started, the conditioning. We were taught very young to start thinking about the job you're going to have and the career you're going to go into. And so I'm now learning my part in all of it, because I'm not a victim of it, but my part in all of it, I don't want to keep contributing to it. Right. And so what I try to explain to people is, whether my healing, and by the way, I'm not done, but while my healing, it all has to do with your mindset. That's why I
Mhm.
do mindset coaching, intuitive coaching, all of that, because it is so important that if we're starting out with a foundation and a mindset, we have something to fall back on. Because if my mindset before was like, well, my parents said, or this one said, or that's not what you do, or that it's everything society ever said. No, it's never anything I said. Nothing ever I conditioned. I find myself sometimes having conversations with all parts of me, sometimes baby Dena. So I put this picture on my phone, and I recommend everyone do this. I put this picture on my phone, and it reminds me when I'm gaslighting myself and everything, I'm like, she needs you. You don't abandon her. You show up for her. You talk to her. She needs mommy Dena right now. So in meditation, so many times she's like, I know you're going to leave again. You've abandoned me so many times. And I started thinking about it. Oh, yeah, I'm really good about cutting off emotions, because that's survival. And so I didn't realize I was hurting other parts of myself by doing that. So now everyone gets a say. We're all in
Mhm.
this together. And that might sound a little delulu to others, but I'm telling you, because I've lived the experience of being in LA, going through trauma as a kid, going through trauma as an adult in LA, and then moving to a foreign country, being in a marriage with a narcissistic style person, going through all the trials and tribulations. And on top of that, being in therapy for 28 years with the same therapist, is that I now see my part in everything, and I now am no longer willing to be a victim of it. I am only willing to do things that serve me.
And that is very important to keep that in mind. You just reminded me of another person that I was talking to, another guest. She was chronically ill. She had several things going on, in pain all the time. She went through a near death experience. And then when she came back, she realized after a while that all her symptoms were gone. So then she went back to her old self and she started acting with the same mindset as she was before, as far as like, oh, I want to conquer the world and everything. And her illnesses, all of them,
Same thing.
recreated themselves. So it is very important to not fall back, because I'm
It's
sure the
there.
you from today, Dina, it's completely different than the you from years ago
Oh,
when you're
well,
having all that.
Totally. And I wanna
Mhm.
jump off of something like that. So I'm thinking I'm safe, right? And I'm in the clear because
Mhm.
I've done the work and I'm 6,000 miles away in Italy. And then the fires happen in LA. And all of a sudden, I freeze and I get paralysis. All of the
Mhm.
memories come flooding back of losing houses, LA fires, like all the world blows up at 8, film at 11, be to work tomorrow at 9. My body felt everything. Like when I say, even if I wasn't thinking it, it's the memory in the body. I couldn't move my back. I didn't walk for 7 days. I walk every day, 3 miles a day. I literally was eating poorly. I could not get out of my bed. And then one day I was on the phone with my therapist and he looked at me and he's like, "What is going on?" And I just broke and I lost it. It took the conversation with him to bring me back to this reality, but it only took 7 days to dismantle all of this hard work to get me freaking back to that thing, right? So it's not, oh, once you're on this side, it's easy breezy. No, it's 100
Mhm.
steps forward, 10 steps back, 500 steps forward, 1,000 steps back. It's a balance, right? But it's how quick you go in and catch it, you nip it in the bud. Go, I allowed you that week to rot in bed, to be miserable, but no, 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 no. So then I got in on the treadmill in the other room. I started doing the other things again and I started getting back on track, but I fell out of alignment. But when I fell out of alignment, so did everything else. Work,
Mhm.
clients started canceling, then literally negative things started happening because I got into that negative space. When you're energetically negative, I don't think people understand this. Energy is contagious, right? So if I'm being negative to myself, with myself, about myself, and in fear, I don't even have to be thinking a lot of negative. It's just the vibration is low. So now I'm attracting lower vibrational stuff. So, like when you're out and you're like, everything is going wrong. You get every red light. Somebody cuts you off. You try to go to the market and there's a 10 and you're like, what the everything is going wrong today? Because that's the vibration you're going on giving. But then you have days where everything's going right. You're like, oh my God, today's the best day ever. Because it's the vibration you're giving off. Right. And
Mhm.
so now I like to refer to myself as a vibration snob because I am very serious and intentional about who I share my energy with now. I don't just give it away the way I used to. I used to give it to every needy puppy, and I would save them when they didn't even ask me to save them. And now I'm the puppy and I'm saving myself. It doesn't mean that I let go of everyone and everything else, but it means that first I have to fill my cup and
Mhm.
before I'm filling your cup. Anyone can think it's whatever they want, but that's coming from their mindset and their history and their experiences. So, what I've learned is that I can't take that personal because I also can't control your narrative and your past and your mindset. And
Yes.
so, I have no desire to do the legwork for somebody who didn't ask me. Like, no, you're either in it or you're not. It's like when I meet guys now, they go, "What are you looking for?" And I go, "I'll let you know when I find it." Because I'm not going to give you a list of things for you to gaslight me with and be fake with. And so show me who you are and show me how you show up, and I will let you know if that's what I'm looking for. And I will do the same in turn so we can experience each other and see if we're even each other's cup of tea.
Beautiful. That's very powerful right there. Yeah, and I want to go back to growing up, your life when you were younger.
Mhm.
You mentioned that you grew up Christian.
Mhm.
I grew up Catholic.
Uh,
So
I grew
I
I grew up so many different religions. So my
Mhm.
mom was a different religion. I'm a recovering Catholic. I'm a recovering born again Christian. Okay, so Seventh-day Adventist. My favorite was I used to always want to be in brownies, but my mom put me in this thing called Pioneer Girls. And it wasn't until I was older and my best friend was Mormon. She goes, Dina, you went to Pioneer Girls? And I go, yeah. She goes, you know that's Mormon, right? And I was like, wait, so I was Mormon for a while too? My mom was constantly in search of, and then I moved to Italy where the Vatican is so close and everything is
Mhm.
about the da 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 da. And then I'm a recovering Catholic.
For
But
sure.
that that stuff is no joke, no disrespect for anyone's in it, but I go
Mhm.
back and I think now of the fear-based gaslighting that was happening.
Mhm.
I went through a very long period of anger and resentment, but now I'm at peace with it.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Your Christian beliefs and all the other religions that you mentioned now that you had, all of them except spiritualism, I think.
Uh-huh.
To where they all, to my knowledge and my experience with Catholicism, you go outside, you look
Yes.
for a grandpa in the clouds with a white
Yes.
beard to solve everything for you, as opposed to
Mhm.
going back in. And then when you go inwards and you start finding your own voice, you start connecting with yourself, because I think that, that's the most important thing before anything. How was that to you? Like when you started experiencing all your psychic gifts, maybe for the first time in a long time, how did that impact your spiritual beliefs, and how did you process that? Were you afraid of them?
I had to hide it
Mhm.
because I was told my aunt they didn't talk to me because I was the devil.
Of
And
course.
a lot of family members didn't talk to me because I'm the devil. They don't want to hear about it. I'm a weirdo. I'm this, I'm that. And mind you, I grew up in Orange County. So, Orange County, it's behind the orange curtain. So, no one sort of goes outside. And I was always looked at as like the misfit, right? But then I
Mhm.
moved to LA and my godmother used to do seminars and meditations. That's why I use the word intuitive and not psychic, because psychic still makes people very uncomfortable. And I'm respectful of
Mhm.
that. People are more responsive to intuitive. And then what I realized with, okay, so I do readings and I'm pretty psychic, but it turns out we're all very psychic, but empaths, especially neurodivergent people, we have pattern recognition and all this stuff, which actually aids to it, right? So I learned at a very young age to read people. On top of that, my dad was in and out of prison and I had a lot of child abuse. So, and imagine being neurodivergent and not knowing, and you're so overstimulated and you're in constant trauma response. And then you go to LA to pursue acting, and you're constantly told that you're too ethnic, too heavy, you're not pretty enough, you'll never be the leading lady, never, 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 never. And you spend 20 years being told that you're all of these things that you're never going to be. When I say it was soul crushing, right? And then I was just so confused by God all the time because it's like, God, you're not helping. And it had nothing to do with being famous, just so many things. There are a lot of people now who still are very turned off by what I do, and they've never even had a reading with me, and they don't even know how positive it is, and it's not what they think, but they're so closed-minded to it. I'm not here to sell you on what I do. You either show up and you know that this is something you wanna do or not. I'm not here to convince you. I'm not a party trick. It doesn't work like that. Respect what I do. I'm not coming to your job and telling you to do something for me for free on your off time. Right. And so I got really sick of that in LA all the time. Oh, you're saying it and tell me about myself. Tell me something that no one else would know. And it was just like, I got so tired of it that I stopped telling people. It was just literally like I would go into parties in LA. And because my intuition, I'm so sensitive. I'll go into parties and my sphincter would get tight. And I would look at my friends. I go, we got to go. People are doing drugs here. And they're like, what? It's an energy thing. You know, you walk into a bar and the bar's full of people. You check it out and you're like, this is our vibe or it's not. Right. I'm learning now to do the same thing with friends, markets I go into, wherever it is the energy vibe needs to be. It's not always going to be perfect, but I'm not going places where I'm not wanted or not accepted. And I'm also not going to force myself on you. I've learned all of these things, which before it was always like, go show you're enough, go tell them you're enough. And it's like, wait a minute. Why am I always proving myself? Why is no one doing it for me? I'm the good friend. I show up. I do this. I do that. So it wasn't until I started learning about. So my brother used to say, "Oh, self-care. That's so selfish, so disgusting." And Jesus wouldn't like that because they're born again Christians, right? And it's no disrespect, but the way they're taught and the rules that they go by is very different. But why would God want you to judge me and tell me that I'm not good enough, that I'm not following your? That's what I don't agree with, is that I
Mhm.
respect what you believe, how you worship, where you're going to praise and whatever. I'm deep in my spirituality. I don't need you to convert me. And
Yeah.
so it just feels now more than ever, we're in a spiritual warfare.
It
People
does.
have to wake up.
Now, I wanted to go back real quick to the healing session that you had. Can you talk to us about that and the things that you experienced in the days following your
Yes.
healing?
Okay. So this lady had bought me a session with this lady, and I didn't know what it was about. I'd never had a healing session, and so this lady used to be a pastor at like Stanford or Princeton, one of those churches in the hospital, and then she left the church. And so she, not a fallen angel, I don't know what you call it, but she's somebody who then questioned her whole part, right? During my session, because it was in 2021, I remember her saying, like, explaining and making me close my eyes of what God looked like to me and how I envisioned him, and to sit on his lap, have him hold me and be his child and connect with him, and to understand the feeling how God is not outside of me, how God is
Mhm.
inside of me. And then it was the conversations and the kindness and the directness that she would sort of call out my religion and my beliefs and question me, right? She wasn't saying it was bad or good. She was just questioning that I was still there for the right reasons. And then the aftermath of that, everything started to reveal itself. And it wasn't that I would look at my Christian friends different. I would hear it different and I would see it different, because now I'm outside of all of my beliefs about it, because she gave it light, right? She gave me permission to question my religion. I think really is the key, is that no one had ever given me permission to question it. You don't question, that's just the way it is. It's the Bible. Right? And then she was like, "Really? Let's just work through that." And then when I quit drinking, I decided that I was like, "You know what? I'm going through a divorce. I don't want to go through a divorce drunk. So I want to be sober." I would drink like 3 glasses of wine a night for my pain. That was my excuse, my justification. And really, it was the pain of dealing with a narcissist, dealing with chronic pain, and all of the other stuff. So when I stopped drinking, then the clearer picture started to show up. Because think about it, I started drinking when I was 16, and I'd never not drank. I'd never dated sober. I'd never had sober sex. It wasn't that I was an alcoholic. It was just like typical American girl who likes to party, right? And then when I stopped drinking and I started waking up with a more clear head, I started working through my pain at night when you would go to drink and you're like, can't be drinking. So what you gonna do? Then I started going inward, and then I started looking around at my apartment, cleaning through things, processing things, rethinking things. And then came finding out that I'm neurodivergent. I'm on TikTok. All of these people are saying all these symptoms. I'm like, wait a minute. So I talked to my therapist and I said, "Do you think I'm this?" And he goes, "Yes, I do." And I go, "What the fudge? When were you going to tell me?" And he goes, "Well, Dena, you like to label yourself. So we've been treating the symptoms, not the diagnosis." And I was like, "Oh, I got you. I get that. I respect that," because he's absolutely right. Coming from Newport, everything had a label. And I was the biggest judgy McJudgerson, right? And so then you start going, nothing is what it seems, because my
Mhm.
marriage wasn't what it seemed. Everything was from a different perspective from that religion background. Listen, I went to Bible study at 6 in the morning before high school. I had Bible study
Mhm.
every Wednesday nights. I'm deep into my Christianity. And then it just started, and it's weird, even when I came to this country, it started turning me off. And it wasn't giving me the things that originally it had. And then with the healing lady, I think that she helped crack open a side of me that I didn't know existed. And she did it in such a gentle way to where I felt safe to stay open. I wasn't closing right back up to protect myself. And I think
Mhm.
I had created a safe environment with the no drinking, not gaslighting myself. Living alone during the pandemic was a safe environment for me to actually unmask and
Mhm.
unveil all of these things and then do some research. In 2023, I listened to 5,600 hours of audio self help books on Audible. I walked like Forrest Gump all over this city during COVID for hours and hours. I would walk and listen. I would journal, and I would start meditating, and then I would start these practices, and then I'd fall off and then I'd get back on. And it wasn't until 9 months ago when I saw the podcast on TV that I was like, something has to change. I was doing chemo injections for the rheumatoid arthritis, biologics, all these things. I felt so sick all the time. Then come to find out, one of the medications I got off, it just came out that it causes osteoporosis. So you're kind of like, were the medications making me sicker? Because how is it that I'm not taking anything for any of my ailments and I have none of those ailments now? Do you see
Yes.
the healing journey? The beginning started then, but it's always evolving. It's never ending, because I've even learned so much more just in the last 15 days. And you're always finding out new things about yourself, about this world, about how things are supposed to be, how things aren't what they seem. It makes you go, "Oh, fudge." Like, this is like, you have to be willing to go deep, really, is what it is.
Yeah, that is true. And I believe that when you're ready, the
Mhm.
master is going to show up. The book is going to come your way.
Yeah.
The healing in this case, somebody else purchased that healing for you. So that's when it cracked open and you started questioning religion and, not necessarily the teachings, but the connotations, like in a negative way. They're showing me, they're teaching me to look outside of myself for something else. To me, that turning point happened to me in 2011, I want to say, early 2012, when I found the Seth books. Are you familiar?
No.
By Jane Roberts. It's an amazing sequence of books, and I've only read the first three. It's 9 books. She
Uh-huh.
started channeling before channeling ever existed. I think she was the first ones from the 1960s. And she started channeling Seth. Seth goes into details about the universe, about God, about things that I kept questioning myself growing up about the Bible and religion. I didn't feel like I was allowed to ask questions because why are you questioning what's in the Bible? That's what I thought the response that I was gonna get. Could have been that, could have been different. I don't know, maybe, but I didn't feel with the freedom to ask certain questions, like challenge the religion. And this book started explaining the origin of God, the origin of the universe. Why do we act the way we act? What happens when this, that, and the other? How we plan our lives. It
The
was
soul's
amazing.
journey.
Exactly, the soul's journey. So I started reading and reading and looking for more. And I started, asking those bigger questions. Now that was right after my Kundalini awakening, and I was still Catholic. I had
Is
never
the
heard the word chakra.
Kundalini awakening?
Yes. Yes.
I'm
I
so
didn't know what the word chakra was, and I
uh,
was freaking I thought I was going crazy.
uh-huh.
So then little by little, like after my Kundalini awakening, I found the work of Jane Roberts, channeling Seth. And then that book started explaining to me, this is what's going on. This is that. I never heard like out of body experiences. I didn't know what that was. So
Yeah.
then little by little, I started like, I think they started throwing breadcrumbs after breadcrumbs, and I started it and taking it and taking it. And here we are.
And isn't it? It can feel so isolating. It can feel
Yes.
scary. It can feel like you're on an island all by yourself,
Mhm,
because try talking to other people like that. They look at you like you're cuckoo for
mhm,
cocoa. What I've learned is I choose people to share this kind of stuff with that I know are
mhm,
on the same vibration, right?
mhm.
I'm not going to get rid of all my friends. There are certain friends that I love and there's history, but this is so far out of their realm. I'm not interested in dragging you along someplace you didn't ask to go, but I'm
Yeah.
also not willing to sacrifice a lot of my old stuff. So I compartmentalize things now. I don't share all of this with everyone, but I live my life in an intentional way, but I no longer live life in linear time. Uh,
Mhm,
like, it's not that, oh, time doesn't exist. But when you
mm,
get up in the morning, if you grew up in capitalism, you get up and you're early, rushed, and you got to, instead of gently rolling out of bed. And so people are like, oh, but I don't have the luxury and I have to work. And I get it, but then wake up earlier.
mhm.
Show up for yourself in different ways. Stop making excuses. I could give you every excuse for my pain and why I don't do what I do because I'm in so much pain. That's what I did for 20 years. And it got me nowhere. It was only until I turned around, I started showing up for me, did I start seeing change in myself. When I started showing up for me was when I started changing. My ex husband will say to me, you are such a different person. And then my niece will say, "You're so different now." I go, "What do you mean?" She goes, "You're not as reactive." and has activated. And that rang true for me because people used to get me so, oh my God, I thought I would have to fix it. And now I'm just like, listen, people are going to do what they're going to do. There's nothing I can do about it. I don't want to control it. I don't need to control it. May we all be free. Respect me. I'll respect you. But I'm not showing up the way I used to, investing in you when you didn't ask me to, but also investing in you when you don't invest in me. That doesn't work anymore. So when you have all this free time now in your headspace, because you're not gaslighting yourself, you're not beating yourself up, you're not telling yourself you have to do all these things, and you're not putting yourself down. There's so much free time in there now to create, to do beautiful things, to start showing up for yourself in different ways. And I think it's so important because no one ever gave us permission that it is okay to show up for yourself and nobody else on some days. Right. And so when I tell you that I'm a completely different person, I'm talking from skin to brain to the way I show up in the world. I've had to rework and redo everything. It's not just like, oh, I just lost some weight and I'm thinking positive. No, every morning my non-negotiables are meditation, sauna bag, red and blue light. Then I exercise, I use a weighted vest. I watch what I put in my body. I watch the way I think. I've treated it like boot camp, like spiritual boot camp, because the stakes are really high. I have everything to lose. Nobody cares about my health the way I should care about my health. Nobody's coming to fix me. They're just giving me more pills. That is not a long-term solution. So when I took my power back and I said, let me just see, let me just try. I used to wake up in the middle of the night and I would be cooking meals and eating because one of the sleep aids made me sleep eat. So I didn't realize that I'd gotten up to 230 pounds because I would wake up in the morning and there would be this mess all over the kitchen. And I would be like, what the heck? I was sleep eating and cooking. I did it one pill at a time to not overwhelm the system. But when I say you got to go in and excavate, you've got to start to rebuild, you got to figure out what that looks like for you. And I listen, I choose my battles, not everything at once, but I choose what's going next and then what's good. So I got to a point where in 2017, I started getting such bad migraines from the shampoos that I had to stop using all shampoos. I tried to use distilled water. I tried to use vinegar. I tried to use everything. It turns out it's from all the chemicals. I'm just somebody who's so sensitive that it affects me differently than a lot of other people. So again, I was desperate. And so I had to do something different. I use these charcoal shampoos now. I've learned that when I partake in stuff from the matrix, I suffer afterwards. That would be processed food or let's say alcohol or anything. If I partake in that, I suffer physically. So I just don't partake in it. When you get to be this age, it's not worth the pain that will give you for 3 or 4 seconds of, that.
Exactly.
I
Exactly. Dina, we can talk for hours
know.
and hours on end, but I want to talk about your work. You practice, you do psychometry. For
Mhm.
people that are not familiar with that, can you tell us what that is,
Yes.
how you discovered that gift, and what can people expect from
Mhm.
working with you with psychometry?
Yeah, so what psychometry is it's I go off the energy that I get from you. It's
Hmm.
an energy thing. I read your energy. When people come for readings is that I would give you a full reading, past, present, future, everything in between. Where the coaching started to come in is that I started to feel like it wasn't fair to crack people wide open and not give them any tools to use afterwards cuz for some reason, I can go really deep. So think of it like as accelerated therapy. I get
Hmm.
into your emotions, pull things out of you, figure out what it is we're doing, why you're still feeling this, and then we can choose directions. Now, I give premonitions where I can tell you and I will give you choices. Any good psychic should be able to give you choices. If you do A, B, and C will happen. If you do B, A, B, and C will happen. You got to give people choices on where it is they want to go. And then monthly, I have clients who just do coaching sessions so that once they get that first initial reading, we know what they need to work on and how to keep them accountable and how to shift their mindset. And so every month we do sessions, we give them homework, we connect with them intuitively where they're at, so that it takes away a lot of the talk that you're talking with your therapist to talk through things. And that I just go straight in, and I do some channeling. And so it's like, it depends on the person, but I find readings to be a really magical experience because you get so much information. And when I work with young people, this young lady wrote me a couple weeks ago. She goes, "You made me see myself in ways that I would have never been able to discover myself in the ways that you just showed me tonight." Right. And I'm like, she's 17. This is amazing. Do you know? And she's now a coaching client, right? These young people are not afraid to trust their intuition, but they need somebody to give them a foundation where to leap off from, a launch pad. So I like to feel like I'm the launch pad for people who are just dabbling into spirituality. And I help you get your feet wet, get perspective, get direction, get confidence. And then I help you get a mindset. And then we keep going and going. See, it's evolved over the years, but it's a very magical experience. Helping people find themselves is a
Mhm.
really beautiful thing, but you have to be a safe space for them,
That is true.
you know?
Yeah. Now, Dina, do you have any current projects right now that you would like for the audience to know about?
No, right now you could go to my Instagram, Dena Paduano, or on YouTube. I'm Intuitive Coach Dena. I do daily inspirations. I do some little camera to me of thoughts of the day, of advice, some sort of clean cooking TikTok. I'm a Intuitive Coach Dena. And so those are just the projects right now. The project I'm really working on and I want to get out there is I want to help people find themselves, and I want to help people get direction and perspective. I think it's so important that people find a safe space where to find that, but it's
Mhm.
accessible and not super expensive, and they can afford it and have access to it. And I think there are a lot of people out there right now that don't know who to turn to because they were super religious and maybe they can't talk to their family or maybe they can't talk to someone. So you get someone like you and I where we've been on both sides. I respect your beliefs and your values. I'm just giving you a different perspective. That's all.
Yeah. And along the same lines, if you had a friend going through the same situation you just described, they're waking up, they're discovering their gifts, their lives are falling apart, like the dark night of the soul.
Yes.
They don't feel like they can open up to their family and friends about it for fear of, oh, you're crazy. What advice would you give someone in that situation?
I would say talk to somebody else and don't talk to those people, but find somebody, find a Facebook support group. There's so many different meetups or so many different things, but find like-minded people who are curious and who are questioning. Don't be afraid to educate yourself. Don't be afraid to find more information from outside sources. You're not going to get the information you're looking for if you're going directly to the church, if you're questioning the church, right? And so I feel like people are afraid to go outside of a realm, right? Because they probably feel like they're betraying it. And so what I'm saying is there's nothing wrong with researching. You're not betraying anyone or anything. You're just researching. And as you research and you get to know yourself and you show up for yourself, the old you that served you then, it was there then, but you're changing also. And so you've got to allow yourself to evolve and to question and to show up differently. And so if people are afraid that you're investigating and curious about what your faith is, well, then they're the problem. If everything you're doing is right, it should speak for itself. Right? And so I think spirituality scares a lot of people because it's like you've gone rogue from God. Right?
Yep.
It's like, really? Like, really? Do I look like I've gone rogue? Like, I still believe in God, but I believe that God is inside of all of us and we are extension of God. And if you think about it, God is light because light is everywhere. And what shines out the dark is the light, right?
Yep.
So that's what makes sense to me. That may not make sense to you, but I can help you figure out what's going to make sense to you so that you can get a mindset that works for you, that gets you in a direction that's going to make you happy. I don't need you thinking like me. I need you thinking like you, but we got to figure out what that looks like for you, who you are now. That's what we do in sessions. It's like deep work and it's powerful work, but it's also life-changing work. I mean,
Yeah.
look at you, girl. That's doing the work right there, right? So, like, don't people tell you whenever you're places that you're light, you're always so happy, you're always so positive, you're always so consistent? I get this feeling that energetically, you show up consistently the same no matter where you are.
Yep.
That shows that you've done the work. I don't wake up
And
and
you know what? I don't think we're ever done doing the work. And it's a journey. Same as healing, it's a journey. You're never done healing. You're never done learning. I know that specifically when it comes to healing, it's challenging to say, well, girl, you need to enjoy the journey. Because
Mhm.
if you're in pain, it can be challenging, but it's a journey. And we have to
Well,
enjoy it,
it's
not
a
forget that.
journey, and it's you have to remember it's your journey.
It's your
So
journey.
somebody else telling you what to do with your journey is not right. And this
hmm
goes for me. Me telling you what to do with your journey is not right. I will support you in your journey, but I am no longer going to judge you of your journey, which I was always taught to judge.
hmm
What I am saying is, do you know who you are? And do you know why you do the things you do? And do you know why you believe in God the way you do? And have you ever thought about conceptualizing the way you think about God? Or have you never even thought about it because we were just automatically taught to believe in something?
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you so much for that answer and that advice. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
And Dina, it's been a pleasure having you on today. I really enjoyed our conversation. Before we go, if there is one thing that you would hope the audience got from your experiences, from your life and your journey in this conversation today, what would that be?
That it would be is that you're not a victim of everything that's happened to you. I had a victim mentality for a really long time, and of all of my ailments, all of the abuse, all of the stuff that happened. I'm not taking away from all of that. It did happen, right? But I have to learn, and everyone else has to learn how to overcome that, because that's where the growth and the lessons are. It's so powerful to take your life back and start asking questions, start investigating, start going in. Don't just blindly follow anything or anyone. Start asking, excavating. I can't repeat it enough. So many of us get tired when we get home. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it this weekend. How about if we start with just little no's of, hey, you want to go to this? You want to go to that? I'm sorry, no, I can't. And no is a full sentence, right? No, and then you don't justify, right? Let people show you who they are. So become the observer. Literally sit back and collect data. And when you collect data, you see how people show up, right? You see how they're behaving, and then you match it to what they've always told you, how they've always gaslit you. And then you're like, it's not to use against them. It's about going, yeah, this doesn't feel right for me anymore, and I prefer to move this way. So then you compartmentalize, right? But you won't know how to do this unless you can go outside and become the observer and get perspective.
Thank you so much, Dina, for that message. And thank you again for coming on the show. It was truly a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you so much for having me. What a beautiful conversation.